We're on the air. We're live.
We are on the air.
Perfect. We'll let people trickle in. I imagine people will be rather angry, and they have every right to be angry. I'm Evan Marinofski here on a live Bruins beat. Man, I can't remember the last time, Joey, we did a good live episode of something. It'd probably be like, Game 7 against the Leafs last year, where it was upbeat and good. I'm Evan Marinofski. That's Joey Capone. Joey, we'll skip the intros because obviously we know what we're talking about here. Bruins fall to number 7. Worst case scenario for the lottery. They're going to pick 7th in this upcoming draft. Could have picked 1st, could have picked 2nd. 3rd and 4th were never really on the table. 6th they had the best odds for. And they also had pretty good odds for 5th. 7th they only had like 14% odds for. And they fall to 7. Mainly because now it's a new system this year. The Islanders jump to number 1.
Insane.
And Utah jumps to 4, which is just bananas. And you wonder, you can get into the rig stuff. The Islanders, it's New York, and Utah is the newest expansion team. And it's like,
Well, if it was rigged, we would have simply no idea, Evan, because in case you guys missed it, in case you're only tuning into the post-game show and didn't actually watch the draft lottery for some reason, the way that they did it was they pull the balls, create a 4-digit pin. That correlates with a lookup table. That number then hacks a safe. And then you have 30 seconds to get through the safe. You have to get through the laser room. There are heat sensors inside of the vault. It made no sense. They could have just pulled 4 numbers and been like, yeah, no, that's the Islanders. Actually, it's the Rangers. The Rangers are first overall. Would have made no difference. We had no way of knowing. I guess you could have looked up the table yourself. I don't know anybody who was sitting in front of the TV with the lookup table in front of them this evening. But my guess is 95% of people were not. But yeah, I mean, the rig stuff is obviously going to come right to the top. And I'm sure that's probably part of the reason why they decided to do it this way in front of people, because they were getting some kind of allegations about that. Bettman said, oh, somebody brought it to me as this novel idea. We had some event planner come in and he brought up this cool idea of having it on TV. Yeah, it's like, I think you were kind of under the gun a little bit that things seem to be going the right way for the league a lot, and you were doing it behind closed doors. He expected the Bruins maybe to be on the benefiting end of that big market team kind of down and out, but obviously not the case.
This is worst case scenario, and it's not awful, but it's not good, because we've talked about this a lot on this show. Number 1 and 2 are pretty set. I think it's pretty clear with the Islanders getting the number 1 pick. Schaefer's probably going to go to them. The Sharks are right there at 2. I do wonder if the Sharks move up and try to get Schaefer from the Islanders, because the Islanders could use Schaefer, but the Sharks could really use Schaefer. We talked about this a lot, where it's like the Sharks don't have a need at center. They don't need Misa. I do also wonder, Joey, do you entertain trying to trade the 7th pick and other things for the 2nd pick and for the Sharks? Because I will say, the way this draft is shaking out, there are some good D there at the end of the top 10 going into 11 and 12. So I wonder about that. That's where I'll start. We'll get into who they could pick at 7. I think the most realistic thing is they pick 7th. But I think there's a legit case. You need a franchise center. Misa looks like it. I don't see Haggs, Frindell, or Desnoyers, who you really wanted, one of them. This whole time, it's like, well, if you get 5, you're going to get one of those guys, and you're happy. You take any of the 3, and if you get 2, you get Misa. You probably weren't going to get 3 or 4. And if you get 6, like maybe one of those guys is there. I don't foresee how that happens now at 7. Do you make a case that you put a package together and go get that 2nd pick?
I mean, a package like that would entail what? You know what I mean? Like to get up to the top of a draft that's so top heavy. I mean, I remember a Razor being on this show and saying, as long as you're in the top 6, you're in a good spot. Because that's 7. Really, yeah. He's like, that's really where you want to be in this draft. Anywhere beyond that, it gets thin really quickly. So the teams that are up there know what they have. And any kind of package, especially with the Bruins prospect pool. I mean, you're looking at trading probably more picks than players to get up there. And that whole 3, 4, 5, 6 area is mostly projected centers. It's hard to look ahead right now. It's hard not to get blinded by the present because they are so center heavy right now, and they have like 6 on the NHL club. To look ahead and say, well, they will need a franchise center. They will need a 1C at some point. I don't know, Evan. What do you think a package to move up to, call it 3 or 4? If you're looking at like Frundell or Haggs to move up there, what does a package look like?
Well, for 3 or 4, it's a little bit less. I mean, not crazy less, but you are doing a little bit less. I mean, I look at I pitched this back in, I think it was before the season when they were having the Swayman negotiations. And I'm not saying to do this, but like you're wondering what a package is. San Jose could use a number 1 goalie. Like, if they're going to pass over getting another number 1 center, which they don't need, like Swayman might make sense in that. Now, the realistic part is you're not trading Jeremy Swayman for that. The realistic thing is, even if you had like Dean Letourneau from last year, the Sharks don't need another center in the system. They have Celebrini, they have Will Smith, so that's not really needed. Do they look at like a low rye? Do they look, if you did the 7th overall pick, plus do you do next year's first? Do you do like a low rye? You try to get creative with that. Do you trade more picks? I don't know if it's worth it. Like it just comes down to how much they value a Michael Misa. Like if you're doing with San Jose, like if you really believe Michael Misa is like, okay, we were dying for that number 1 or 2 pick. We think he's a franchise altering player. We will trade all those picks. Then that's what you do. I don't think that's the right thing to do though.
No. And if you're looking at a guy like Mason Lohrei, with the Bruins draft history being what it is, I mean, Cam Neely would dispute this, but it hasn't been all too great. And you have a guy who is an NHL player, which in the Bruins book right now is a win. To roll the dice once again and say, yes, we drafted, developed, and created an NHL player. And now we want to roll the dice again because we think this time we got an even better one. And like, we're really sure of it. I think you would have some fans kind of turning up their nose at that idea of putting so much stock into, granted, a number 2 overall draft pick, but it is certainly putting a lot of eggs in one basket. I don't think that I foresee, just if we're going with the straight gut check, I don't think they trade out of this spot.
No, I don't.
I think that this, either. I mean, it's the highest draft pick they've had since 2011 that they've been in the top 10.
2010, that was 2010. So yeah. And this is again, like, and you look at, Chicago at 3, they're going to get probably one of Haggs, Frundell, Desnoyers, Utah. And this is another thing. And we'll get into sort of who they could pick at 7. If they were 5, you wonder like, all right, if a team in the top 5 or in the top 4 takes Porter Martone, big right winger, 6'3", good player. Because, NHL Central Scouting has him really high. A lot of people value him as a top 5 pick. If one of those teams does, you're getting, a chance at 2 of the 3 of Frundell, Haggs, or Desnoyers, most likely. But now you're at 7. And I think, again, unless team, you need a prayer for one of Haggs, Frundell, or Desnoyers to fall to you at 7. I just can't envision that happening. Haggs was a potential number 1 pick at the beginning of the year. So skilled, an elite playmaker. Yes, say whatever you want about his size. You people who've been complaining about his size for 3 or 4 weeks now would now give your right arm for James Haggs. I don't think that's happening. Anton Frundell, who I really liked, really came to like, elite shooter, big kid. You're not getting him. Desnoyers, another one, like a good 2-way center, great skater, good vision, all that stuff. He ain't coming to you. I can't imagine he falls to 7. There are some rankings that have him lower, so maybe teams reach on a Jake O'Brien, who I think now is going to be who you hope is there at 7. Maybe a team takes a Martone earlier, a Brady Martin. Does a team take a big swing on Roger McQueen, 6'5" centerman, who was out for a lot of this season with back issues, which is not great at 18 years old. Like, does a team take a swing on that? Teams do go off the board. I don't know, man. Like, I don't think you're getting, Misa's the top of the class number 1 center. and then it was Hagens, Frindell, Desnoyers. I have them as Frindell, Hagens, Desnoyers is my own ranking. You're out of that range. And you're right outside of it too, Joey. Like you're right there. That's what's so heartbreaking.
Yeah, I mean, your options are, like you said, sit and wait and hope that somebody falls into your lap and that somebody goes off the board, which doesn't seem like a great
and you need a couple.
plan.
You'd need two. You would need two teams to go off the board, which is hard. It's hard enough to get one.
I mean, a lot of people are putting Martone at 6. Like Martone falls to 7. I mean, he was like one of my more realistic.
I was going to say Martone to me. If Martone's sitting there at 7, and Jake O'Brien's off the board, to me right now, if you're a Bruins fan, the two you got to hope for. As of now, it could change. There's a lot. We still have over a month. There's still a lot more film to be watched and prospect breakdowns and all those different things. It's Martone and Jake O'Brien. If you can get one of those, come out of this with like a B+. You take that.
So what's your thoughts on Eklund? Victor
I
Eklund?
like Eklund. I like Victor Eklund. I do. I just don't know if that's the guy I go for right now. Speedy, skilled, high compete, like that kind of guy. I just wonder about, and he did it against older guys in the same league that Anton Frindell did. I hate to say it, as of now, and this could change, I go for size. Like Eklund is a better skater than Martone, no doubt. But from what I've seen, Martone can drive play, big kid. I think they'll value that. Now, I do wonder, though, Joey, they did take a 6'7" center last year in the first round. Do they go smaller? Do they go more skill? Maybe.
I mean, I think it's less about Martone's size that appeals to the Bruins. I think it's the fact that he gets that gritty label a lot, and he gets that, his play style more so than his size that feels Bruin-esque, that feels like it would appeal to this front office. That's why he stood out to me, is that I was trying to see it through Neely and Sweeney's lenses. I thought, this guy jumps off the board to them, and also is just a phenomenal player. Eklund, I need somebody to talk to me like I'm a 5-year-old about why I feel the way I feel about guys coming out of the Swedish league. That I view them very differently than I do, guys coming out of the Q or the OHL. That it is a full-on professional league, and I think it's more or less that there's a dumb part of my brain that just sees the stats and says, well, those are not simply as impressive as somebody having 100 points in 55 games in the Q or whatever. I guess it's my familiarity with the Swedish league too. That I'm not sitting.
Yeah, I mean it's a pro league. They're pros. Like that's the thing. And I think with Desnoyers, one thing I've continued to say is like, it's nice, but the Q is all, it's guys under 20 basically. And that's nothing wrong with that. That's great. It's good hockey. Guys come out of there. Same with the OHL, same with any junior league, USHL. But it doesn't fully compare to the NCAA, and it doesn't fully compare obviously to the second men's league in Sweden, which is what Frindell and Eklund are on the same team, I believe. So the fact that, I mean, if you look at David Pasternak's stats, his draft year, they weren't anything phenomenal either. But it does for guys who are 18. I believe Frindell is first historically for that league, which has guys like Philip Forsberg, Willie Nylander, David Pastrnak. So that's why Frindell I was really high on, because it's like, all right, there's a guy who's succeeding against men. Right. And so I will say, as you were talking, I pulled up Corey Pronman from The Athletic, is covering these guys extensively throughout the year, and he has a rankings, and he puts them in tiers. He's got tier 1 Matthew Schaefer, tier 2 he's got Michael Misa, Porter Martone, and Caleb Desnoyers. Tier 3 he has James Hagens at 5, Anton Frindell at 6, Jake O'Brien at 7, Victor Eklund at 8, Roger McQueen at 9. And you get into tier 4. I don't think the Bruins, Brady Martin is someone who was pretty good at Worlds. So he's been rising on draft boards. And some of these other guys, Radim Mirka is 6'5" defenseman. Like they could rise up. But again, let's focus on this tier 3. Is there a chance? Again, Corey Pronman's speaking for himself, but there are teams who might feel this way, who might feel that Anton Frindell is a 6th or 7th on their board, or that James Hagens is somehow 5th or 6th, or they have, Jake O'Brien better than those guys, even though Jake O'Brien isn't as good of a skater. So like, I don't think you're not fully screwed, But I don't see a world, I just don't see a world in which you're getting Frindell, Haggs, or Desnoyers. And then again, as you said, you go into the next crop, like we were talking about Victor Eklund as someone right there. I think a lot of people are scared of Roger McQueen. That's where you get a little antsy with the injury history this season. Good player for sure. I go back to it. I think it's Martone. I think it's Jake O'Brien. Jake O'Brien solidifies the need more. Jake O'Brien, I've heard some people say, might be the best playmaker in this draft. So, it's not bad. He's not the best skater. That's why he's under Frindell, Desnoyers, and Haggs. He's not quite at their level of skating. That's okay. Again, I'd rather the better skater. There's a reason Matthew Schaefer's number one. It's because he's an elite skater. You can work on it, but it's what you get at number 7.
A lot of talk around O'Brien, too, is that he's still improving, that he was always a past first, good hands kind of player, and he developed a shot this year. So to see growth and development still happening, at this age is obviously huge. What I was just pulling up, Evan, I'm just looking at the draft order because it's been out for about 11 minutes and I don't have it memorized.
I have it on my phone right here. Actually, I took a screenshot of the screen. So there you go.
I am so desperate to find something that moves us up in some way, looking at who's above the Boston Bruins and seeing, well, is there a team here that's going to pull a D-man early? Is somebody going to go for, Jackson Smith or Mertka early and can, leave some of these guys on the board? And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who's ahead of them. The best players come off the board. The best players available 90% of the time are going to come off the board.
Yeah.
I don't think there's hope there, and looking in that direction is what I'm saying.
Not that I see so far. Utah is going to make that pick. San Jose, I think is, they're going to make that pick as well. Chicago, it needs it. Chicago, I think is now, instead of getting a defenseman, which is, I think something they could have used. Now they're going to get, do they take Haggs to play with Bedard? Do they, they're probably going to take a number 2 center. Or do they go with Porter Martone as a bigger winger to play with Bedard? I don't know. But again, they're making that pick. Nashville needs it. They just signed a ton of free agents. They need to bolster their prospects. Also, as a New England guy, as editor of New England Hockey Journal, I'd love to see Nashville take James Haggs and pair him with Teddy Stiga, who they picked last year. They're playing together at BC this year. I would love to see that. And Philly needs those picks. So I don't see, this isn't 2010 where the Bruins were really good, made that Phil Kessel trade, ended up with the 2nd overall pick. And it's all right, maybe they won't make that pick. I wonder, not that the Bruins would trade with the Islanders. I wonder if the Islanders trade back into that next mix. I think they need a defenseman, but San Jose needs one more. That's why I go back. Does San Jose try to trade up for the Islanders pick? There's a different team who loves Schaefer. I mean, Schaefer is a fantastic skater. Do teams view him as a Cale Makar or Quinn Hughes type? I don't. I think he's more of a two-way guy. I think his speed's awesome. A lot of his stuff I watch, he's phenomenal. Matthew Schaefer, doesn't even matter for Bruins fans right now, phenomenal off the rush. How often is an NHL defenseman creating a ton of offense off the rush? Nowhere near as much as the OHL against, younger kids than you face in the NHL. So I don't know.
It is crazy that so many of these draft preparation summaries and whatever are all about speed and generating chances on the rush and all that. And then you see clips and you're like, oh, well, because this person obviously belongs in, at least the AHL, if not, into the end. There is men amongst boys kind of situation where you see them and you're like, oh, everybody's going to say that they're fast and they generate, because yes, they are faster than everybody that they're on the ice with. That being said, I mean, Misa and Schaefer, I think, they stand out.
Yeah.
On another level.
And what's tough is there was that dream of the Bruins getting the number 1 or 2 pick. It was possible. And even when they went to commercial break with the number 2 pick, it was oh my God, there's a chance.
Yeah.
And Misa was the dream. Misa doesn't really have any holes in his game, high compete, a great skater, great hands, good vision, good shot, checks all the boxes. size of a guy that you can be like, all right, I think you can pencil him in as a number one center, like for the future. And, Haggs has the size thing, and he didn't, have the Celebrini-like season, which was unreasonable from the jump. But again, I just go back to that Haggs, Frindell, Desnoyers grouping where it's like, man, if you could get one. But again, I go back to this, Joey, like, all you need is, or teams view everything differently. Teams might read draft rankings from The Athletic or Daily Faceoff or Hockey News or Elite Prospects or whomever, but they have their own draft board. They are going off their own scouts who've been pounding the pavement all season. So if a team really feels strongly that Victor Eklund is who they want at 5, or that Brady Martin rises to the point where the Nashville Predators take him at 5, or Utah decides they want Radim Murka, they want a big defense, which I don't know why they would, but like this stuff can happen. That's how you get lucky. That's how you fall into the Haggs, Frindell, Desnoyers category, which I feel is kind of the sweet spot. And now that sweet spot has certainly changed.
It just does stink that you are relying on luck and waiting. And I think it's a question of, does the front office feel comfortable, especially in the position that they're in? The rumors about, this offseason kind of being on the ropes a little bit. I'm not sure I necessarily believe that, but if you do, then does this front office sit and wait and cross their fingers and hope that they fall into that category?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can be, and we talked about this at the beginning. Like, I don't know, like, because I mentioned this off the top. Do they trade this pick? Do you try to trade with San Jose or a team up top for one of those guys, for one of those potential franchise centers? I would love to see them do it on one hand, because I think I do like the centers in this crew, and I would love to say, all right, they've got Letourneau, who's going to be a project. They've got a Frindell or a Haggs or a Desnoyers or a Misa, and it's more certain. But also, do you want to give up all those extra picks? Do you want to give up, other guys that you acquired that are prospects? Do you want to immediately give those guys up? I don't think you do at the moment. Now, Sweeney is speaking, and I don't think they've asked. I haven't seen any quotes about the draft lottery yet. I can't imagine he's super pumped about that. By the way, before we tell you about our good friends over at Prize Picks, I was reading Corey Pronman's breakdown of Jake O'Brien. The player comp is Elias Lindholm. So there you go.
That's brutal.
Just to make you guys feel better. The player comp is Elias Lindholm. Now, I will say, I have not watched Jake O'Brien nearly enough as Corey Pronman or someone to give you a fair player comp. I will say, from what I've seen, from what I've read, he is a great setup guy. So, like, I don't think it's all hope is lost if Jake O'Brien is your pick. Nothing wrong with that. It's just, I don't know if the boxes are all checked to be like, that's a franchise number one center. Skating is average, puck skills above average, hockey sense above average, compete above average, shot is below average. So again, I mean, you can work with that. And again, we're talking in high end prospects here. It's not like this kid's going to be, automatically a bust. I think he can easily develop into a good top 6 center, middle 6 center. But I go back to, you're not getting, I don't think, one of those surefire guys. Although I will say, like, O'Brien is mentioned in the same breath as Haggs and Frindell and Desnoyers and other high end prospects in some regards. So, like, again, not all hope is lost, and a team could pick O'Brien earlier too. So there's that as well. I want to continue this draft talk because I think that's what people want right now, Joey. But first, our friends over at Prize Picks, cash in on the basketball playoffs, Prize Picks, and the hockey playoffs. Don't miss your last chance to add your favorite players from the court to your Prize Picks lineup, whether it's points, rebounds, assists. Take your pick of more or less for your shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash today. Turn your playoff hot takes into tickets to basketball's championship series. Starting with the play-in round, every lineup you make on Prize Picks will enter you in the Takes to Ticket sweepstakes, which could get you and a +1 on a VIP trip to the ship. Prize Picks is the best place to win cash while watching sports. Join millions of users and sign up today. There's also every Tuesday, Prize Picks will discount several projections on the board, usually by 15 to 20%. And today, there's also Flex Friday. Make sure you opt in and tap the checkbox in your lineup builder to be eligible for the protected play. Choose squares from any game on the board. If your lineup does not win, you get your net losses back and promo funds up to your promo limit as soon as the lineup settles. So download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. So again, where we want to start? I mean, or we want to continue here. I mean, you mentioned, like, I think for the 7th spot, you're talking probably most likely Porter Martone, Jake O'Brien, Brady Martin is someone that's risen. Victor Eklund, who you seem to like or take a liking to.
Mm-hmm.
You've also got a guy like Roger McQueen. I don't see them doing another big-bodied center,
No.
especially one with the risks McQueen comes with. I can't imagine that.
No, that is far too dicey. That is a gamble that, I mean, they would get immediately put under such a microscope. I mean, whoever the Boston Bruins take in the first round any year, this year in particular, because of the positioning of their pick, is going to be under a very scrupulous microscope. Grabbing a guy who has injury problems and, like you said, a back problem, anything with your core, anything structural at that size doesn't just go away. You know, if he had a broken wrist or a torn ligament in the knee or something like that, there are recovery methods from there. Examples manifold of people who have come back from injuries. When you start to get into structural things, your back, your hips, even shoulders, at that age and at that size, with that size of a frame, I think that spells trouble. That stinks to say, but I just...
McQueen's a hard sell. Just again, the back issues. He drafted a bigger center last year. So to me, like at 7, it boils down to Martone, O'Brien, and Eklund. I think those are the 3 as I sit here. Because I'll be honest, I was I expected 5. That's what I expected.
Sure, we all did.
I'm like, all right, you get one of Hagans, Frindell, or Desnoyers. Now you go into the backup plan. And you hope for one of those. Now, I think if Martone is still there for you at 7, I have a hard time passing him up.
Yeah.
I have a hard time passing that up. I do.
That's where you start to get into the best player available kind of situation.
And he's someone that there are people who think he's a top 3 player. There are people who think he's like a surefire top 5 guy. So he might not even be there for you at 7. But if he is, that's not that bad. Like, I'm okay with that. And again, it's I've talked about this all off season. I guess you're play driving from the wing with a guy like Martone. You hope you can acquire center in other ways. You do also have 2 seconds. You have 2 second rounders in this draft, which is good. Second rounders are good value. Those are good players. You can get a lot out of the second round. So I wonder if it's Martone or Eklund there at 7 and O'Brien's off the board, or, they don't like the center depth there. I could see them going best available and saying, we'll circle back at center in the second round with our 2 picks and try to get someone there. We'll draft more centers throughout the draft. It just sucks because I think we all thought, all right, you stunk this year to get that next franchise center. I say it all the time. The best way to get a franchise center or a franchise player is the draft. Not saying Martone or Eklund isn't that, but they wouldn't be obviously franchise centermen. I think that's the most difficult part of this. And I'm also not saying, O'Brien isn't. O'Brien seems like a really nice player. Jake O'Brien has had a really good year with Brantford. Again, I'll read what Corey Pronman said. O'Brien has been an excellent junior player as a leading player on a top OHL team. O'Brien displays the high-end patience and vision to hold on to pucks for an extra second to make difficult plays and run an NHL power play. He's extremely skilled with the puck, showing the soft touch and quick hands to create a lot of scoring chances and improvise on difficult plays often. He's a decent enough skater. His game can lack pace at times, in part because he pulls up to make his skilled plays too much. But when he gets going, he moves well. O'Brien, he's not overly physical, but he gets to the net to create chances, can kill penalties, and isn't a pushover. He projects as a very good top 2-line center who could score a lot in the NHL. 6'1", almost 6'2", 172 pounds. Jake O'Brien clearly needs more muscle on him. From everything I've read and seen, a lot of power play points. So that can be kind of a worrisome thing. And again, we're gonna poke holes in all these guys throughout the next month. That's the thing. Nobody, like, unless it's the number 1 or number 2 pick, no one's gonna look good. So picks, whoever they pick at 7, we will poke so many holes into that it's like, oh, but doesn't mean that they suck. It's a matter of where they're picked.
There is no perfect pick here. I mean, even at number 1, there's no perfect number 1 overall. I guess history would disagree. I guess there have been a few, but no, nobody's going to be perfect. I think it's a matter of, like you said, need, best available, and ceiling, like where you can take a guy. I can talk myself into any of those 3: Martone, Eklund, O'Brien. It's really after that they would be in a very difficult situation. I will get excited about all 3 of these guys at this moment, where I was expecting, like you said, to be up in that Haggens, Frindell category. It is a little hard to be looking at Jake O'Brien and to genuinely get myself to a place where I say, oh yeah, no,
yeah,
I could, yeah, here we go.
Print the jerseys, O'Brien, whatever number, I've already ordered it.
Yeah, but like, it will happen. The day will come. And I think it'll be clearer come that time. But right now, I mean, my heart is still set on Martone. If Martone's available, that's in my eyes the best value you can get for this pick.
Let's play this game, Joey. Mm-hmm. Islanders pick 1. They pick Schaefer.
I agree.
San Jose picks 2. Mm-hmm. Do they go Misa or do they go Martone? Misa's the best player, but Martone is valued around there. They have 2 number 1 centers. So do they look at, let's get a big wing, let's get a grittier, power forward kind of guy in Martone, or do they get Misa at and put Will Smith on the wing? But again, so that's where they're going. And then Chicago is likely picking Misa if they don't pick Martone with San Jose. And if San Jose does pick Misa, then Chicago, I would assume, is one of Haggens, Frindell, or Desnoyers. Like, that's what I would think. And then you get into Utah, they're probably picking one of those guys as well. Do they pick a Martone? Is he more of a marketable player? Utah needs marketable guys. I'm just trying to envision a scenario in which at 6 or at 7, the Bruins are getting a guy that you wouldn't expect them to get. Like Desnoyers falls to 7 or Frindell falls to 7. Like, I'm just trying to envision a world in which that happens, and we won't know yet because all these teams in the top 6 have needs. Like, none of these teams are perfect. So it's not like, they can go off the board. Like, all these teams are in dire need of resurgence. So I don't know. I mean, anything can happen. It's just going to be tough for one of those guys to fall in. Now, here's the thing, Joey. The good news is you will likely get, we're expanding the net here. You'll get one of Martone, Desnoyers, Haggens, Frindell, or O'Brien, or Eklund. You'll get one of them, right? Like at least one of those guys will be available when you pick. But
it would be impossible for one of the top 7 to not be available. Yeah,
correct. Yes, It would be impossible for those 8, at least one of those 8 not to be available, or 7, whatever it was. It just comes down to who. Like, does the team value Martone high? Like, could we be undervaluing Martone, saying that he could be available at 7? I think we could be.
I will have
Doesn't
a harder
it suck
time
that we're in
this
situation? Doesn't it kind of stink?
I
was expecting to be like, all right, 5, bingo.
It also doesn't help that the draft lottery was set up the way it is. I'm still really thinking about that, to be honest with you. That I had no idea how they were going to do it, that they were going to take like 30 minutes to unveil each pick. And then they did like 3 and then suddenly turned around and said, here's the whole first round. What? Oh, I thought there was going to be a moment. They're like, and the Bruins get this. No, they're just, here's the whole thing. We figured it out. Were you not following along? Were you not doing calculus at home? So it was a little bit of a slap in the face, especially because, Evan, I went into this thinking 0.0% chance at number 1, right? I don't care what the numbers say. The Bruins, there's 0. It's not happening. And then you see the balls start moving around.
And then your heart flutters a little. It's like when you do a lottery ticket and you're scratching, you're like, no way I win. And then you're like, there's a chance. Like, hold on there's a chance. Okay. And you get a little excited. It's like that little, like,
yes. Oh, I felt something. And I really believed. And then,
are you a Seinfeld fan, Joey?
I am.
Remember when George eats the mango and he goes, it moved. It moved.
It
I think it
moved.
moved, Jerry. Like there's that little part when the balls are going around. You're like, I think it moved. But and then it didn't move anymore after that.
And yeah, I mean, seeing the odds go up for number 2 as well, you really start to believe. I think the way they did it is crazy, but it did get the heart pumping. The Who Wants to Be a Millionaire music, and
that's right.
It was a little crazy. It felt like a soap opera, but it got me going, and I'm gonna watch every year going forward just for how crazy it is. But man, just like just the actual worst case scenario.
It was, and I think that's what's so disheartening, especially because I think fans and we all went through this season of just a crappy year, and you think, all right, if the light at the end of the tunnel is the 5th overall pick, and it's James Hagans, or it's Anton Frindell, or it's Caleb Denoyer, or it's one of those high top 5 players, you take it. Now you're at 7, and I think the big thing on this class is as much as Schaefer and Misa are 1 and 2. And I think they're very close. I don't think Schaefer is as set a number 1 pick as everybody else seems to think he is, especially given he missed a lot of the year due to a broken collarbone. After that, you don't have, like, at least projection-wise, you don't have a lot of, like, oh, the 5th overall pick is going to be like a number, an incredible player, a legend, something like that. And obviously, weird things happen every year with the draft. Cale Makar was 4th overall pick. Like, things can happen and people can miss and guys can progress, but it feels like you have a lot of guys in the top 7 to 10 that should be lineup guys who contribute. And one thing I want to say, because I see someone said, I see Jake O'Brien as a replacement of David Krejci, which is not insane. Krejci and Bergeron were never elite skaters. These were not fast guys. Krejci was great at slowing plays down, good strides and all those things, but these were not, guys zipping past opposing defenses or making defenses respect them so much they had to, ruin their gap control playing them. What you ideally need this 7th overall pick to be, if it's a winger, you need this guy to someday be like consistently 60 to 70 points. Same thing of down the middle. Now that's a lot to ask, but I think a lot of people think, oh, a first round pick, they're going to be a 100-point guy. They're going to be a 90-point guy. That's unreasonable. You're not, that's likely not going to happen. What's likely going to happen is you get a guy like Porter Martone, and if he can consistently put up 25 to 35 goals every season, you go, hell yes. You take it. Same with down the middle, right? If Jake O'Brien comes on and he's a great setup man for David Pastrnak or great setup man for Mitch Marner, you take it. You take it every single time. But that's the big thing.
Important. It's important to go back and look at former drafts. Like, you just think that everybody on the ice is a first round pick, a top 10 pick. And it's important to go back and see how many misses there are and also how far back that some of the stars are from. I mean, David Krejci that we're talking about is a 2nd round pick. Like there's so many guys that you can look at that come out of the woodwork. So, I mean, 10 years from now, do we look back at the 2025 NHL draft and go, oh my God, they got O'Brien at 7?
Yep.
It's entirely in the cards. And the player that you're drafting is not the player that you put on the ice in Boston. There's a whole bunch of development that happens in between there, a whole bunch of growth, team chemistry, all that kind of stuff comes into play. So they're not a finished product when you draft them. So that the player that you see, the highlights that you see from college or from the Q or wherever, that's not who's going to be suiting up for the beast. So all that is to say, we should feel okay.
Let's play a game.
Yeah.
We'll go number 7 pick every year, right? 2024 was Carter Yakimichuk to Ottawa. That's still way too early to tell. Yeah. Number 7 in 2023 was Matvei Michkov with the Philadelphia Flyers, who's a pretty damn good player. Now, he fell because of the whole Russian stuff. But still, fell to 7. 7 in 2022 was Kevin Korchinski, a defenseman for the Blackhawks who has been contributing at the NHL level. 2021 number 7 pick was William Eklund, who's been really good so far, 110 points in 174 games, definitely contributing. 2020 was Alexander Holtz with New Jersey. He's been okay so far. 2019, Dylan Cousins for the Buffalo Sabres. He's been a really good center for them. I know that it's Buffalo, but he's produced. 2018, Quinn Hughes was the number 7 overall pick to Vancouver. 2017, Lias Anderson. I don't think he's done a heck of a lot for the New York Rangers. 2016, I swear I'm not going to go forever. 2016 was Clayton Keller. Pretty damn good player at number 7. 2015 was Ivan Provorov. That was the famous 2015 draft.
Yep.
2014 was Hayden Fleury to the Hurricanes. 2013 was Darnell Nurse to the Oilers. 2012 was Matthew Dumba to the Wild. And 2011 was Mark Scheifele to the Winnipeg Jets. Hell of a player. 2010 was Jeff Skinner to the Carolina Hurricanes. I will stop when we get to someone who's not that good. That's when I'll stop. Nazem Kadri to the Leafs in 2009. Turned out well. Colin Wilson to the Predators in 2008. That's a tough one.
That might be it.
Jake Voracek 07, though, to the Blue Jackets, right before the Bruins took Zach Hamill, who did nothing at 8. And then 06 was Derek Brassard to the Blue Jackets. So I'll stop there. But my point is, you should get a legitimately good NHL player with that number 7 pick. I think history shows that. And history's been spotty. There's Mark Scheifele in there. There's Jake Voracek. There's guys who are top of the lineup franchise players. And there's also guys who aren't going to be that. But you should be getting a legit prospect. No doubt. No doubt.
Absolutely. And the thing with O'Brien, too, the chat is pointing out O'Brien's one of the youngest guys in the draft, too. So
correct. He's a late 07. He's a late 07. Yeah, actually, if I kept going with the number 7, it does start to teeter off. Although Ryan Suter in 2003, sure. I will never stop looking at the number 7 overall pick for each season. But I agree. And I think that's the thing. Like, again, if somehow Haggs or Frindell or Desnoyers falls to you at 7, you are doing backflips on Causeway Street. If Martone falls to you, if O'Brien, I don't think O'Brien's going to have to fall to you, and I don't think Eklund's going to have to fall to you. I think there's a world in which those two guys are who you're picking between, and I think they'd probably go O'Brien because he's a center. Seems like it, at least.
I think the profile just fits too.
Yeah, so I'm looking right now. Like Schaefer, Misa, Haggs, Frindell, Desnoyers, Martone. That's 6 guys. So if that goes chalk and those 6 guys are gone, I would assume it comes down to O'Brien and Eklund. And those are the two that it's between. You're hoping Martone maybe falls and someone goes off the board earlier. You're hoping that like Misa, or not, excuse me, not Misa. My God, I'm looking at the name. The Misa's not going to be there, but like there's a Frindell, there's a Desnoyers. But that's what you're hoping for. That's what you're hoping for at this point, Joey.
It's a lot of crossing fingers. If they don't move up, it's a lot of crossing fingers. But if everything goes chalk, I don't hate where they are. I prefer Kendall, 5, but I don't hate where they are. A franchise player is certainly going to be in the cards.
Potentially, yeah. And Kendall says Brady Martin seems like a Bruins pick too. I think Brady Martin's a name you're going to hear a lot more too, of like a little bit off the board, but in that range, it wouldn't be insane to pick him. Roger Benjamin asks Roger McQueen. We sort of talked about him. I think there's a lot of red flags there. You did pick a big center last year. I can't imagine you'd do it again. McQueen to me feels more like a like a low teens, like 11 or 12 pick. And I think Martin is projected there, but could rise in this next bit of time. That wouldn't shock me at all. So I think, it's funny because we started off this stream pissed, rightfully, and disappointed. But I think as we've sat here and talked it out, we've let our feelings be known. We've expounded on these things. I don't think it's horrible. It's worst case scenario for where you were at. But it's not awful. You're going to get a good player. It just comes down to what caliber of player is that. And I think when we look back, it's like, man, that last game of the year where you got that extra point, like, or just even, the win. I forget who it was. I've blanked out the end of the season, but they beat the Hurricanes late in Boston where it was like, come on. So it's
tough to have that perspective right now. And I understand that for people. It's, your dad takes you to the car dealership and says he's going to buy you a car. It's like, you're getting a car. But when he comes around the corner with a 92 Pontiac, you're like, it's kind of the worst case scenario here, but thanks. I mean, I got a car. You still get a car at the end of the day.
You ever see that Greatest Freakout Ever YouTube series? Do you ever see those videos?
Probably, yeah.
There was one where they were the kid, they got him a car for his 16th birthday, and it was this beat up pickup truck with spray paint all over it, and they blindfold him. It's a great video, and he goes out to it, and he's like, "What did I get? Is it a car? Is it a truck?" And he takes off the thing, like, surprise, and it's like, and he's just pissed, and then he takes a baseball bat and just starts beating the hell out of it. And I think it's kind of how Bruins fans feel right now, where it's like, oh my god, a truck, a new car, a truck, like a brand new Ford F-150, and it's like, no, it's you know, it's a Honda Ridgeline. It's nice. It gets the job done. It gets from point A to point B. I'm a big
Chrysler.
Honda guy.
They're reliable.
Exactly. Honda, it's going to last you forever. You know, if that's Jake O'Brien, you're jumping for joy if that's what he ends up being. A good, solid NHL centerman who's a top 6 fixture and fits that. So I don't think it's as bad as everyone's gut reaction, including myself, was. It's not amazing, though. And it's not where I think, obviously, we all wanted it to be.
Emotions are high right now. When the come down inevitably chills us all out, I think we'll take a look at Victor Eklund, Jake O'Brien, perhaps Porter Martone, perhaps.
If he can fall to you, now as I'm sitting here, I'm like, maybe he doesn't. Maybe he is a top 3 pick. Maybe he is a top 5 pick. I've done research on a lot of these guys, and Martone, I've always blocked him out a bit because I figured the Bruins would be 5 and say, all right, no, they're not taking Martone there. They're taking a center. Like, and I really did hone in on Haggs, Desnoyers, and Friedel, as you guys have been listening can tell. That's what I've really been honing in on. I'm like, all right, you're getting one of those 3 guys. You take that every time. And even if they got pick 6, even if they got pick number 6, there's a world in which they get one of those 3 guys. But at 7, that's going to be difficult. So I think, Bruins fans are going to have to do their homework on Jake O'Brien and guys like Victor Eklund.
Are we both landing that O'Brien is probably the most likely option now?
I think so.
That's where
I think that's
right
probably your guy. And I think he fits their profile. He's defensively responsible, great setup guy. So I think, if you want to play this game, we're playing a lot of games here, but like if they did sign Mitch Marner in the offseason, you paired I've been saying this all along. This is why you go get Mitch Marner. You can put a guy like Jake O'Brien up with him. Mitch Marner has a ton of speed. You're not worried about his skating. Mitch Marner's pushing the pace. Jake O'Brien is setting him up. Or a David Pastrnak, like, that makes sense. So to me, I think as of right now, Jake O'Brien, and someone says, I fear Jake O'Brien gets taken before. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's true. So.
Yeah, the big bad Bruins didn't work again, so let's go back to fast and speedy. 1-year experiment of let's get big, let's get huge. Never mind, let's trade everybody. Now let's get fast.
Quick and over with. O'Brien is almost 6'2". So, like, you are getting a guy with size. Because, again, you have to figure, you have Matt Poitras in the system. Matt Poitra's 5'10". He's a great player. But it's like, how far are you getting with him? And what is he exactly? I think when he came up, we were all like, oh, there's your next Patrice Bergeron. And it's like, not so fast. And I think you're seeing that where it's like, he's probably a top 6 center, but we don't know that for sure. Do they trade him? At some point? What is Dean Letourneau? Nobody talks about Dean Letourneau as like a future projected number 1 center for this team, or even a top 6 center for this team because of the season he had this year. Letourneau's a project. Letourneau, you're not seeing him next year here. Obviously, he's going to be back at BC, or the year after, or even maybe the year after that. He genuinely could be a 4-year college player, and that's okay. But people talk about the size element. They did just draft Dean Letourneau, and again, I've said all along, I'm not saying he's a surefire bust, and I'm not saying he's a surefire number 1 center, but you just drafted him in the first round. So there is that element to it too.
There's also an element of identity versus keeping up with the league. And there's obviously a balance to strike between speed and size, and not that those things are mutually exclusive by any means. But the setup that they had this year, certainly, it just showed that it didn't work.
Yeah, and I think, one thing I always hear, and I don't mean to pick on him. I love him. Ty Anderson was on Poke the Bear on Friday. And he was talking about, he was talking about the Haggs versus Friedel versus Desnoyers. And he was saying that he likes Desnoyers because, he's defensively responsible. And with guys like Barkov in the division and Matthews, you need someone that can shut them down. And I think that's a perfectly fine opinion. But you also have to do what's right for you and your own identity. And if you're constantly chasing what everybody else is doing and trying to shut everybody else down, the Panthers could bottom out in 2 years. The Maple Leafs could bottom out in 2 years. You have no idea what's coming. You need to do what's best for you and what's best for your identity. And to me, the Bruins are seemingly trying to go back to speed and skill or try to get more like that, which I'm for. That's a good thing.
Right.
And so that's why, again, I liked Haggs. I like Haggs. You're not going to get him now. But so like with O'Brien, he's not a tough customer by any means. But if he's a setup guy for your scoring wingers, that's great. And I think a lot of fans are drawn to Porter Martone. I know Felger and Maz, their first draft segment they did, they were all over. Oh, Porter Martone, he can be Corey Perry. Oh my God. Yes, he's big and strong. And that's great. But like, if you're just drafting Porter Martone to go up against Matthew Tkachuk and knock him around, like you're going to have a bad time. You need to do what's best for you. And that's, to me, that's, at number 7, you're taking the best available at this point.
I mean, they tried to create an antidote to the Florida Panthers last year. That's what people were speculating anyway, that they were trying to, match what the Panthers had. And now we're sitting here talking about having the 7th overall pick while the Panthers and Leafs are playing in the second round. So
that's the thing. So we'll end it there. I think we've emptied out everything. We've aired our grievances. We feel better now. I don't think we feel as bad as we did when we started. I think there's a little room for optimism. I think me going through year by year the number 7 picks, we got to clip that. That's got to be everywhere. See, you guys
people are going to love that. Yeah.
Bruins are getting Mark Scheifele. That's what they're getting, the number 7 overall pick. So that's where we're at. Joey, this has been fun. We'll have to do this again.
It's been a good time. Yeah.
Well, certainly there's going to be a lot more stuff, obviously, with the Bruins Ringside channel. 2 Bruins beats a week, 2 Poke the Bears, 2, what am I forgetting? Oh, Pucks with Haggs. Are you still doing Bear With Me? Are you going to have that as well?
Bear With Me is coming back next week.
There we go. All right, so you can look forward to that. So we have a lot coming there. We're going to be breaking down these guys a lot. Jake O'Brien we're going to be diving into, Victor Eklund. So we're going to have all that, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun time. That's that.
Buy the O'Brien jerseys now.
Buy them now.
They're going to sell out.
You're going to have a tough time getting your hands on them. That's Joey Capone. I'm Evan Marinofski. Bruins Beat listeners, you have a great rest of your night.